into from about 600 people when I joined in 1981 to around 1,600 employees strong. And that's like, 1,000 more people. Very good. The force is moving, growing, leaps and bounds, taking on a lot of additional responsibilities. Back in the day, it was all about drug running. I'm chasing all the drug fellas. Now, of course, that has been minimized to an extremely small amount of challenges. Even the poaching has dwindled down a bit because, of course, we got a lot more ships out there. We got more air coverage. And the Defense Force is far more efficient with surveillance than we used to be back in the 80s. So, are we what was set out to be? While we're the largest of all the Commonwealth Caribbean navies in this hemisphere, are we really the best little navy in this region? Can we do it? Of course we can, indeed. But currently, we leave a lot to be desired. And to right our Royal Bahamas Defense Force ship, we have to put some things the way they were intended to be. And then, we ought to take it to the next level of professionalism, performance, and certification. How do we do that? Well, my dear listener, just keep those lines taut and get ready to chime in on this timely, kind of provocative discussion as we explain numerous ways on tightening up and flying right, making our beloved Royal Bahamas Defense Force the best little navy in this region. Follow us as we engage a litany of hot topic items surrounding this matter, such as what I perceive to be the projected makeup of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force from the headquarters, from the base team, from the seafarers on the deck side, seafarers on the engine side, training, the support team, the promotions, civilian employees, affiliated agencies like the police force, NEMA, Bahamas Maritime Authority, Port Department, Customs, Fisheries, Immigration, Airport Authority, BPL. What Defense Force will do with BPL? Well, when we have those type of unrest that could affect the entire country, Defense Force should be able to move in and keep things ticking until things kind of die off and come back to normal, eh? And those are the things that we want to discuss tonight. But before we go any further, I'd like to give a shout out to my number one fan, Auntie May. Auntie May up there in Freeport, 90 and going steady. Auntie May, you're so 91, eh? My goodness, I can keep calling you 90, I don't know. Auntie May could be 91 early next year. So she's rocking steady. So good night to you, Annie Mae. Let Lauren and Venice and Margot and Yvonne and them. Boy, I forget Yvonne tonight. Boy, Yvonne, I know she have me into beat, but that's my girl. And, let them know that they need to continue taking good care of you so you could continue to listen to Maritime Matters. Our sponsors for the night show, of course, are 101 Pharmacy, and also Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport. Listen, people, you want good treatment when you need medication? Check out my little cousin Shantia McBride and a lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau and, of course, Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport. Fill your subscription at the store or send your refills via the online site, oneononepharmacy.com. That's oneononepharmacy, all one word, lowercase.com. The 3 locations, East Street South and Charles Sanders Highway in Freeport. And, of course, Explorers Way in downtown Freeport, opposite Scotia Bank and the Region Center. When you walk in the door, you will be treated with royalty Oh, by the way, I was in Freeport over the weekend, and I can tell you, I went in one-on-one pharmacy, and boy, they small, but guess what? They got it going on. Everything you want is there, baby. That's what I'm talking about. One-on-one pharmacy. We are also sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. And yes, we provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services, starting from assessments and plans, going into audits, going into trainings, 3 levels of training, the 4 hours, the 9 hours, and the 18 hours. We got it all covered, baby. Anything you need for maritime, what you call port security, maritime security, ISPS services, you call BMC and we will fix you right up. Here comes a new entrant to our sponsorship. Thirdly, yeah, that's right, we got another entity wanting to sponsor the show because they like how we kick it. We are proud to announce the joint sponsorship of the Grand Bahama International Pilots and the Bimini Pilots. These are a contingent of independent marine pilots, well qualified, fully able, quite capable, that is, making themselves available to provide maritime or marine pilotage to any and all ships outside of Nassau Port area. That means any family island and or any private island in the Bahamas. So please, feel free to call on GBI pilots or Bimini pilots for your maritime pilot needs. To the listening audience out there, you all know the deal, my boy in town. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the man behind the controls, our wonderful producer. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you tonight the insatiable, the man of the hour, the man with all the power. My friend Lester used to say, drum roll. He is fully able, quite capable, the one and only Mr. Craig Gibson. And there goes that big time salute. Yeah, that Craig says hello, and he's saluting. You're listening to Maritime Matters, people. On this show, we talk maritime. We talk maritime on this show, and we're going to be talking Royal Bahamas Defense Force tonight. And guess what? This is going to be exciting. This is going to be interesting. And ladies and gentlemen, we ain't wasting no time. As soon as we get kicking, the phone lines will be open. Whenever you're ready to call, our number to call will be, as always, 326-8255. So write that down, because I know we can get some calls pretty soon once I start talking about what the RBDF should look like. I am going to give the projection based on my experience, my knowledge, and what I know. The best little Navy in this hemisphere should be, well, the best little Navy in the world. We going for the whole hog. Ain't nobody got more talent than Bahamians, you know. There's no reason why the Bahamians, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, cannot be the best little Navy in the world. I tell you that. Okay. The purpose of our show is to highlight persons that made significant contribution to the maritime field in the Bahamas and to sensitize all Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues. Of course, tonight we're going to delve into the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. The Royal Bahamas Defense Force is the largest maritime entity in this country, people. Not only are we the largest small Commonwealth Navy, we are the largest maritime entity in the Bahamas. So let's talk that some more. Halfway through the show, of course, well, we're already getting ready to open the lines. So we're talking maritime, you're listening to Maritime Matters, and you know what? We're going to dive straight into it. We did 2 shows already. 2 shows on what we think, how we think the Defense Force should be rolling. So this is our 3rd of the series. And this one, we're going to kind of wrap up the projection that Captain Glenn Bain feels. And only Captain Glenn Bain. I know everybody else could call in and give their views on these things because it's an open line when it comes to the show tonight as far as Defense Force is concerned. Yeah? Let's talk Defense Force, people. This is where we're going. We start with our headquarters. And as you know, our headquarters would have the person in charge of the entire force. We call it the commander of the defense force. No matter what the rank is. The rank could be commander. The rank could be captain. The rank could be commodore, as it is. It could even be lieutenant commander, as some navies in the Caribbean have a lieutenant commander overall in charge. But we like commodore. And to get to the next level, as far as our head honcho becoming a vice admiral or rear admiral, to get to rear admiral status, we need more numbers. Right? We need like another 1,000 members strong. So instead of 1,600, like 2,600 to 3,000 strong. And then, of course, the person in charge of such a large entity can be crowned Rear Admiral. But we ain't trying to get to Rear Admiral just yet. Let's see where we should be, where we need to go, and what we're not doing, what we should be doing, what we could be doing, and that's how we can roll with this. Okay, we got a CDF, the Commander Defense Force, who's a Commodore today and has always been a Commodore. The first Commodore would have been William Swinley. And when Swinley came to the Bahamas in 1975, he was only a 3-ring commander. He was not even a 4-ring captain. He was not a Commodore. But because he went through the painstaking exercise of garnishing the Defense Force Act, well, basically patented behind the Royal Navy Act, and selecting and organizing and putting things together, he basically lifted this force from what used to be the Police Marines into what is now the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. And I think he did a remarkable job. Mr. Swinley did a remarkable job. But did we continue the trend that this little Navy, the brainchild of Sir Lyndon Oscar Pinling, set it out to be? I don't think so. I was in and out of that force. And I was in there for 18 years. So, I basically did it all. And that's my view. I think I did it all in that defense force. So we have at headquarters, we have the Commodore or the Commander Defense Force and his team. Now he's overall in charge of both headquarters and the base, but he can't be stationed 2 places one time. So his office is in headquarters, just like most other ministries. They got the minister, and then you got a group of departments and whatnot. And the minister spearheads things from the ministry's main office. So in headquarters, as far as I am concerned, and I'm sure we do have a chief staff officer, but we need that chief staff officer. That chief staff officer should be no less than a 4-ring captain, because the Commodore is 1 step higher than a 4-ring captain. So my force, the way I see the Royal Bahamas Defense Force shaping up, is we should have 2 4-ring captains. 1 4-ring captain basically to run headquarters, and headquarters deals with external entities. The force, external entities like the ministry, external entities like the police, customs, immigration, fisheries, the airport authority, the BMA, NEMA. So headquarters is the hub for reaching out to the outside of the defense force, to communicate, to liaise, and all the rest of that, even with the U.S. Embassy and foreign entities as far as maritime is concerned. That's where headquarters come in. Now, again, we'll have a chief staff officer who's a 4-ring captain. And then on the flip side of that, or the opposite side of that, is the captain of Coral Harbor, who's also a 4-ring captain. Now, the captain of Coral Harbor is basically running the job for the Commodore. You got the chief staff officer running headquarters for the Commodore, or the Commander Defense Force, and the captain Coral Harbor is running everything else. And that, when I say everything else, it's a whole a whole lot of work more than the captain at headquarters, because he have some 1,500 men under his realm. He has the entire fleet under his realm, the entire infantry, right? Because somebody need to be overall in charge. And in my view, you need one person overall in charge, and you're going to equip him with people that he need to do whatever. So we only need 2 foreign captains. Right now we got about 10, based on my last check, or the information that I last received. We got about 10 foreign captains. And my view on that. It's a bunch of nonsense. Okay? And anybody that thinks it should be more than 2, please call in. Let's say why. Because under the chief staff officer at headquarters, we will have 2 of the 5 commanders in the Defense Force, right? You don't need no more than 5 commanders. You get 2 captains, 5 3-ring commanders with scrambled eggs on the caps. And that will be the extent of scrambled eggs in a force this size, in my humble view. And again, it's up for discussion. Call in 326-8255 and let's have that discussion. So we got the base liaison officer at headquarters. Now this is the person who's reporting to the 4-ring captain as to everything that's going on the base. So he is in direct communication with the captain of Coral Harbor on the base on a daily basis, couple times a day, and anything the captain from the base needs headquarters assistance with, he has a liaison person who's a 3-ring commander, lower than him. But he don't have to talk with a chief staff officer about things if you could have a 3-ring commander who could deal strictly with what's going on the base, right? And secondly, the chief staff officer would have a public liaison officer directly under him. Now, this is the person that does all the reaching out. First of all, the base liaison officer who's working at headquarters, he will liaise with the captain of Coral Harbor, and he will also liaise with all of the heads of departments. And the heads of departments will all be lieutenant commanders, eh? They don't need to be 3-ring captain. They're lieutenant commanders. And he will manage all of the headquarters staff outside of the commodore, of course, and the captain. He manages the full regime at headquarters, and they got a good 20, 25 people at headquarters, eh? Because headquarters that's the hub of where you do all the liaison outside of Defense Force with all those other entities. And he would also be in charge of projects and planning, because the Defense Force, they should plan ahead at all times, and they should have projects always that they're always addressing, as far as purchasing ships, managing ships going on dry dock, and dealing with day-to-day things for them. So he's the projects and planning officer as well. So that base liaison officer, who's the 3-ring commander, reports to the chief staff officer with responsibilities of liaising with Coral Harbor, liaising with heads at Captain Coral Harbor and heads of departments, managing the headquarters staff, and spearheading the projects and planning. And of course, he will have 4 lieutenant commanders working underneath him to do those 4 chores, right? So he's going to be busy, but he's going to have a good team of officers working with him. And in total, while we have 5 commanders, we're going to have 28 lieutenant commanders. That's 4 in headquarters there, and another 4 coming over under the public liaison officer at headquarters. And he liaises with all, first of all, Ministry of National Security and all other ministries on a day-to-day basis on how Defense Force is going to tie in with everything else going on outside of the Defense Force. He liaises with foreign entities like the U.S. Embassy, the Chinese Embassy, or basically training if we got people going off to do training in some countries, whether it be Cuba, whether it be the UK, whatever the deal is. He deals with all the foreign entities. He also liaises with all the non-government organizations. We call them NGOs, right? NGOs, because the Defense Force is affiliated with a lot of outside entities other than government entities, right? So it will be the public liaison commander And he will have 4 entities who are lieutenant commanders working on them to spearhead those 4 areas. Liaising with Ministry of National Security would be one of those lieutenant commanders. Liaising with other ministries is another lieutenant commander. Foreign entities, including our foreign affairs and the American Embassy and the British High Commission, all the rest of that good stuff, right? And plus a 4th one to liaise with all the NGOs and that type of thing. So that is basically our setup for headquarters, right? You got the Commodore, a Chief Staff Officer who's a foreign captain. You got 2 commanders, full 3-ring commanders, scramble leg hat, right? Who are the base liaison officer in headquarters and the public liaison officer in headquarters. And they would have 4 each serving under them. The base liaison dealing with liaising with Captain Coral Harbor, liaising with heads of departments, headquarters staff management, and projects and planning. And then the public liaison officer working directly under the Commodore or the Chief Staff Officer would liaise with the Ministry of National Security, all other ministries, foreign affairs, and other foreign entities, and of course, all the NGOs. And that is my headquarters setup. Of course, you can have a litany of ratings and whatnot to assist in these matters, but that is the setup as far as the steering team of headquarters. Now, we got Coral Harbor. The captain of Coral Harbor, of course, being the head honcho. You don't need more than one head honcho. If you get more than one captain, you get issues, right? You need one person in charge. And then under that one person, you can have 3 full commanders, scramble egg, all the rest of it. They're reporting to that captain for their area. And what are those areas? We got, first of all, the base executive officer. This is the person that regulates and runs the force from a base perspective. You get the squadron commanding officer. Who's that guy? The squadron commanding officer is basically overall in charge of all the ships, all the crew on all the ships. And then, of course, you get the force engineering officer. We used to call it BEO, base engineering officer, but it's the force engineering officer because we need to give far more importance to engineering than we did up to this time since the Defense Force started in 1980 is when it was solidified, but it really started like 1976, eh? So we need to now catch up, do the thing right, and make sure our engineering is given far more attention as far as qualified people in engineering and as far as planning in engineering. And we'll talk a lot about that before the night is out. So let's go to the BXO. What is the BXO going to be responsible for? Again, he's going to have 6 lieutenant commanders working on them because the job on the base is pretty vast, eh? He's going to deal with all the base administration stuff, like putting people on charge, dealing with all the transportation. He has a lieutenant commander under him dealing with that section. Disciplinary. That's putting people on charge. You're going to make sure you have a disciplined force. And you know what? You don't necessarily have to have Defense Force officers dealing with trials. There's no reason why the Royal Bahamas Defense Force can't be associated with a qualified lawyer that's a civilian, or 2 qualified lawyers that are civilians under the Defense Force salary and assisting with disciplinary based on the laws. You have a well-trained, now Defense Force, of course, already have 1 or 2 lawyers that are called to the bar, right? But again, Defense Force don't need an officer or a lawyer that is called to the bar in uniform. Because what is that person going to do? They're going to be dealing with contracts, yeah. They're going to be dealing with discipline, yeah. But now, how high that person is going to be if they don't know how to drive a ship? We don't want to lose track on what the primary role of this force is. The primary role of this force is not discipline. The primary role of this force, you should have your best officers on your ships. And when the best officers on the ships, they're the ones that you're going to promote to be base executive officer, squadron commanding officer, and force engineering officer, and that type of thing. So you don't need somebody in the disciplinary area to be competing with your uniform branch. And this is my view when I serious, because it's there's no we need to keep the eye on the prize, which means keeping ships out to sea, keeping ship crew or ship personnel properly qualified and trained, and focus on doing quality patrols, not just go out to sea and eat up food and ain't really checking you. That's when the time hurry comes, so you get no quality patrol, and you're going to be doing it from a position. You're going to be doing it from a position of quality, where you are actually measured, you are monitored, and you don't have the luxury of just going out there and staying in the ocean and ain't boarding no ships. No, that's not very productive. People, we got to feel it when we're out there. We got to feel like we're there for a purpose. People around us need to feel like we're there for a purpose, right? It's become a mockery in certain situations where some officers say, boy, the man sent me out, I can't see, but I ain't trying to do nothing. I just could be drifting in the ocean, and I ain't want to board no boat, because when you board boat and something go wrong, if you're missing damage to people's boat, or if you're missing, something go missing from the boat, or you got to be writing all kind of reports. So I ain't trying to don't board no boat. I just want to go there and do my 2 weeks, and when I get back, when promotion come around, my name ain't coming up for nothing. And this was the mentality of a lot of officers. I happen to know, because I was one of the officers and I served as a seagoing officer. A lot of people were scared to go to sea. And anybody that were in the force back in the 80s and 90s when I was there, they know this and they could tell you this. And again, I'm looking for some of you guys to call in. Call in. Let's talk about what it used to be. Let's talk about what we would like to see in our force, to make our force the best little navy in this region, and we'll push to be the best little navy in the world, because we have the talent, we have the ability, we have the capability. Let's push for it. Let's do it. Now, under the base executive officer, again, would be the supplies department. Now, does the supplies department need to have Defense Force officers running it? They don't run it in the Royal Navy. The supplies department should be outsourced to a civilian entity that has the experience in dealing with supplies, and there will be no bodies from the supplies department vying for promotion, because the civilians could be doing that. Let's keep our trained Defense Force persons doing what Defense Force is really there to do. Sailing, right? Infantry. You don't want a body that is properly trained in uniform dishing out supplies, keeping the shelf stocked, doing inventory on. Why we need Defense Force people doing that? We got enough people who gone off to be accountants and in school and gone off to deal with supplies at that, where they could come in as civilians and they have a contract to provide that service to the Defense Force. And of course, there will be no competition for promotion. People in supplies getting promoted because some officers get whatever they want from them and this and that. No, we don't need that kind of thing. And the thing is, the Defense Force has a lot of females. I mean, we're always taking in females. And what they do with most of the females is they put them in areas like supplies. Right? Because they don't really push for females to go to sea. Not so in the U.S. Coast Guard. Not so in the U.S. The Royal Navy. These females sail like men. These females pull their weight, and when promotion coming around, they already earned that because they were in military situations where they serve just like their male counterparts. Okay? And the sad thing about it is, even when I was in the force, we have some females serving as secretaries and whatnot. Ain't never been to sea one day since they passed out of training. And they getting promotion every lap. And the guy who was just sailing and doing such a good job, sometimes promotion passing him, but the female ain't missing. Come on. Come on. These things got to fix. We have a military arm. Let's keep it military. People in uniform should be doing military stuff. Okay? Any job that a civilian can do, whether it be teaching, whether it be secretarial, nobody in uniform should be doing those jobs. Because we can hire in people to do those things. And I don't want to hear nobody talking about, well, if you bring in a civilian, they can know too much of the Defense Force business. You got civilians working in the office of the Prime Minister. The office of the minister that's responsible for both Defense Force and police and prison and customs. Come on, man. What you telling me? You could have civilians in those areas dealing with high sensitive material, and they can't work in Defense Force. And everything Defense Force does that goes to the ministry, the civilians dealing with. So why civilians can't be dealing with them in Defense Force? Yes, we need the civilians to be secretaries and all the rest of that in the Defense Force. You shouldn't be wearing a uniform because the people in uniform need to get into the military operations of the Defense Force. Yeah? Let everybody earn their keeps. That's what we call the best little Navy in the region. Accounts department, same thing. You get a lot of people who go off to be accountants. We don't need Defense Force people in uniform to be doing accounts. Why would we need Defense Force people in uniform to be doing accounts? And we could outsource that to an accounts firm or have people from Ministry of Finance be dealing with Defense Force accounts. There's no need for it. But yet, they're in accounts, but they expect to get promoted every time promotion comes around, even more so than the chap or the lady who's out there sailing every day, who's in the infantry doing their thing every day, and not getting the promotion on time. There should be no competition from civilians or civilian jobs in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. Not if we want to be the best little Navy in the world, eh? So let's start cutting down on that, man. Let's start getting these people doing, and let's look at hiring civilians to do what Defense Force people don't need to be doing, because civilians can do it. And civilians are properly certified and qualified to be doing those type of things. Training department. Again, you will need senior rates in your training department. There's no reason why you should have a junior rate in your training department. Senior rates. We got a lot of senior rates. We got a lot of force chief petty officers and stuff all over the place, getting in each other's way, because we got over 70, probably over 80, maybe even over 90 now, right? But training should be the main department in the job that has only senior rates. Only senior rates. Take your training not serious. You don't want no junior rates involved in your training department. As a matter of fact, all of your training instructors could be warrant officers, as far as I can say. I would think that that's one of the best areas for warrant officers to be. Infantry department. We need an infantry department, but we can't give the infantry, and this again coming under the BXOA, you have a lieutenant commander spearheading the infantry division or infantry department, right? I'll call it division, because we normally refer to infantry as divisions, right? So that division, in my view, spearheaded by a lieutenant commander, and you can have one or two lieutenants and then some sub-lieutenants, because infantry department will be dealing with doing the outpost work, like Government House, British High Commission House. We doing the outpost work. We doing the ceremonial stuff, right? Mainly the funerals for Defense Force persons and situations where you have dignitaries die and they having state funerals. When you got people coming in from other countries, heads of states and that type of thing. When you have certain functions like CHOGM, yes, you have an infantry division to deal with that. You got your special drills units and all the rest of that stuff in your infantry department or division. And that infantry division don't need to be spearheaded by nothing more than a lieutenant commander and maybe, like I say, one lieutenant. And we need to get rid of these junior lieutenants and acting lieutenants and no. You have midshipmen, you have lieutenants, well, first of all, sub-lieutenants, then lieutenant commanders, no senior commander and commander, captains and commodore. And that's what you have in the force. We need to respect the ranks that are there and stop trying to add on a little something to give this one little edge. And then, no. When you can promote somebody, promote them, man. This little acting thing and all that foolishness, let's cut that out. Stop trying to pacify everybody. The people who deserve the promotion, and that's why it's streamlined to make sure that people on that force are doing defense force military duties. Bring in a civilian and run them, settle them office, let them go to sea, let them go in infantry, let them do military stuff that they were trained to do. That's how I can with that one. So that is the BXO. The BXO has 6 lieutenant commanders under him. One to deal with the administration of the base, one to deal with disciplinary matters, one that deals with the supplies department that will be a civilian group, one that deals with all the accounts on the base, because the base deal with a lot of accounts, right? You got payroll, you got retirees, you got new entrants coming in, weekly paying for recruits. It's a lot going on, but again, you have one lieutenant commander to liaise with the people who are doing the accounts, because Defense Force will have somebody overlooking that area as well, right? Training department, one lieutenant commander. You got a lot of senior rates, and then you get 1 or 2 junior officers. And that's all you need for your training department to rock and roll. And of course, the infantry division, same thing, eh? So that's your BXO. He's in charge of those 6 lieutenant commanders who basically taking those things and reporting to him how things going in those areas. The SCO, Squadron Commanding Officer. This is the squadron commander. This is the person overall in charge of all of the ships. And we got plenty hardware out there, and they are very expensive, right? And we need one person to be overall in charge. But of course, he's going to have a team of lieutenant commanders, 6 lieutenant commanders working on them. But he got the scramble egg. He's in charge of that area. He reports to the captain of Coral Harbor as to what's going on in the squadron, right? And the people that he'll have working under him, as far as those ships are concerned, he'll have a lieutenant commander dealing with the northern Bahamas. And you call him a northern command officer, right? But he don't need to be no more than a lieutenant commander, because you everything is still centralized, right? You got all of your major stuff going on basically from the base, from the squadron commander. So the person dealing with Northern Command, of course, he will travel to the northern area every now and then. He will make sure they get all the resources they need and all that, and he can do that from base. You don't have to do that from being located in those areas, right? So, and this is a lieutenant commander. Then you get the Southern Command, because Central don't need nobody other than the SEO. Central is that's basically covered. So you get a lieutenant commander to run the northern area of the Bahamas, one to run the southern area of the Bahamas. And then you get, of course, one lieutenant commander to deal with all your large craft. The big boys who go in north, who go in south, who go in all over the place, because they have reach, they have leverage. These big ships need to be properly managed. These big ships need to be properly planned out, and the maintenance need to be on top of things. And so you get from the squadron somebody dealing with all the large craft. Then you get a lieutenant commander dealing with all the small craft. And that includes like harbor patrol. And you know what we got to do with our harbor patrol? We got to stop taking that for granted. When you have a speedboat running up and down in the harbor, going to Poggy Rock, going to Rose Island, going around Paradise Island, that speedboat carries the weight of any Defense Force ship. You realize that? That speedboat can stop and board any vessel they see in that area, no matter what size. Why would you have an able seaman or leading seaman running that? And you got a job loaded with junior officers. You need a sub-lieutenant with experience or a lieutenant. Whenever one of those vessels leave the dock, that vessel should have somebody in there that can represent the Commodore as though he's on the vessel. Because, of course, they're going to be meeting. What's the difference between them pulling down a yacht that is 70 foot coming back from land and sea park, charter vessel with a couple people on it, and the large craft going along Exuma, coming across the same vessel and about to board that vessel? What's the difference? There's no different approach. There's no different in professionalism. So you don't need an able seaman dealing with that. You need a commissioned officer. And rightly so, a junior commissioned officer. And that's how where you really start to get your junior officers to cut their teeth and understand what it is to have command and take charge of boardings and that type of thing. Because your level of professionalism should not go down just because you're dealing with a smaller vessel. That smaller vessel has the authority of any vessel in the fleet. And again, if you don't see it that way, let me know. The numbers are called 326 8255. I gotta write that down. I know, getting a little old now. I don't remember like how Craig must remember. 326 8255. Thank you, Craig. Brother Gibson, that's I tell you, I get the best producer. You all don't know, you know. You all don't know. So again, we're talking about who's gonna be in charge of those small craft, right? That's Harbor Patrol Unit. And then out there in the Harbor Patrol Unit, because they're so important and because they represent the same representation of any large ship in the force, we want a lieutenant commander in charge of that area. Who's in charge of the Harbor Patrol Unit now? I don't even think an officer out there. A commissioned officer. I don't think. Now, I could be wrong. Please, call in and let me know. Right? You got a caller? Call on the line. You've reached Maritime Matters. Thank you so much for calling.
Good evening, Captain Bain. This is Captain.
Captain Brain. What's happening, my brother?
Everything is good, sir. You did say calling, you may be wrong, and you're wrong again.
Well, you need to let me know where I'm wrong, my brother.
So they do have the Harbor Patrol Unit. Is headed by, if I'm not mistaken, a lieutenant, a female lieutenant who runs the unit, and she has some petty officers and chiefs and the like. So it's headed by a commissioned officer, junior commissioned officer, as you rightly suggested.
Well, I suggested it be headed by a lieutenant commander, and every single CO of whenever one of them vessels leaves needs to be a junior officer. That's what I recommended. Because that vessel, as you know, just as good as me, Captain Brain, when that vessel goes out there, they just like any large craft. So we need to have proper representation on those vessels because they can come across any size vessel and have to board them.
But there's one thing we do agree on, Cap, is the fact that I think that there should be senior representation of Harbor Patrol Unit. That's the Nassau Harbor is really and truly the lifeblood of our economy. That's where everything happens. When things go wrong, it not only affects the vessel that may be involved or the pier, it affects the entire tourism product and every first impression that guests receive and the like. So yes, I think that this is an area that when I say we, the Defense Force, could really pay a little bit closer attention to and start really and truly being even more effective and being a real presence there, because you mentioned earlier about the vessels speeding up and down. That's something that when we go to the United States and other places, when you reach in a harbor, you slow right down, no wake zone, and we have to agitate and we have to enforce these things because see, it seems to be a free for all in Nassau Harbor for all intent and purpose. And from my observation, people just for the most part don't have no respect for no speed limit or no wake or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the level of responsibility spearheading that unit. You really want to put somebody who have been patrolling the entire Bahamas for years as a SEAL and have them in charge of because that unit out there, they are far more busy than any single commanding officer.
Oh, it is. And while we're talking about the Harbor Patrol Unit, I would really like to take this opportunity, if I may, to congratulate and to commend those men and women who make up that unit because they have been nothing short of phenomenal. And if my good friend Commodore Dr. King is listening, I think hats off to those guys because I can tell you, you are absolutely correct in terms of how busy those guys are, and even in the midst of everything that they do relative to law enforcement. Just last week, we had a dog in distress at Porterski Dock, and I would have witnessed this dog going back and forth, swimming across from the northern side, from the southern side to the northern side and back, and he was on his last mile of the way.
I hope that no pot cake you trying to big up.
Well, he appeared to be a Bahamian. He appeared to be one of our wonderful Bahamian mongrels who really and truly ought to be loved, even more so than we give them, than we do for them. But the Defense Force Harbor Patrol Unit responded, having been apprised of the situation, and they successfully rescued that dog. I'm telling you, the many onlookers who would have witnessed this situation, everybody was very, very appreciative because the dog would have certainly died. And so hats off to those young men and women who they continuously do an excellent job because the northern side of Paradise Island is precariously congested with activity and boaters, and even the eastern entrance to Nassau Harbor around Poggy Rock and Rose Island, and yeah, they do a great job. So kudos to all those men and women.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Captain Brain, because a lot of times we take things for granted. That could have been a human being instead of a dog falling overboard, and you can't stand up in the water, so you got to keep swimming, and you can't get up when you reach one end because there's no ladder, and we also need to consider putting ladders, building ladders on these wharfs and stuff so that if somebody do fall in the water, they can find a way to get up and they wouldn't have to drown.
So, hey, you know something? These are the kind of things. This is why Maritime Matters, this show exists. This show exists to be able to look at maritime in general and really and truly that whole concept of putting ladders in and around that area. That's an excellent idea, and so I feel very, very privileged to be a part of the conversation because this is how things improve in any country, having sensible discourse and throwing out ideas and suggestions. Some going to land on fertile soil, and so I hope that some of the things that are discussed during this segment taken on board, seriously evaluated to see whether or not it's feasible for implementation, and if so, I hope that they are implemented forthwith.
Yeah, well, sometimes when you in something, you can't really see it. Like they say, you can't really see yourself unless you look in the mirror, but other people seeing you all the time.
Exactly.
So when you in the defense force, and a lot of things, when I was in the defense force, I didn't dream could have been far more effective if we did it a different way. Because I was in it and I couldn't really see it from somebody looking at it.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
think I think one of the biggest problems with the defense force, when we look at the deployment and the strength in general, right? We have, I won't beat the dead horse because we know that the defense force, we can improve on how the force is actually organized, and to a large degree, we know how we would have gotten there. Some of some of it is through our own doing, and some of it is through political interference and nepotism and the like. But be it as it may, I think we have an opportunity to look at it. I mean, I don't think it never. I think every time you can recognize a way to improve a situation or an organization, you should jump on it and see how we can make it happen. The defense force is still young and it's growing, but that don't mean that we have to continue to go down a spiraling path. But if we have the opportunity to turn some things around, and I think we have a lot of BDF officers who were there who can still offer good counsel, who still have work to offer. And so I would really like to see that reserve program get off the ground, where we could go there, we could go to sea, we could help train some of the young folks and whatnot, and hey, they'll still be able to make a positive input that will help the defense force grow from strength to strength.
well, that's the whole idea, Brother Brain. That's the whole idea. Is I mean, some people like myself and obviously you as well. We are very happy to give back. Where we think there could be improvement, we want to give back. Where we went outside of the force and saw how the real maritime world runs. And we could you take some of those ideas and have those applied to the defense force to improve it. You recall that when we were in the force, we got a brand new ship like the Yellow Ellen, Savannah and them, and 10 years later, none of them running.
Well,
That is unheard of in the real world.
yeah, but that speaks to a broader issue, and I think that issue is something that when we plan these ships, every ship that is built comes with a planned maintenance program, and some of it, like I said, some of it again, a planned maintenance program is a program where you have systematic maintenance that you carry out at different times, whether it's weekly, monthly, daily, annually, or whatever. And you have to stick with it in order for the vessel to stay at a particular level or a satisfactory level. And we know in the defense force that some of the issues that they experience is a money issue, and some of it don't really need money. You just need somebody to make it happen, and that's where some of the old guard could come in and help set up some of these programs, and we just follow through with a lot of them, because, like you say, a lot of people joining the defense force because they want a job, they want to make some money, and that's it, and they go on the ships and they just want to go there, do their time, and get back. But we took pride in our ship. We had people who, if they were on vacation and that ship was sailing, they would voluntarily cancel their vacation so that they don't miss their ship. We had competition who had the best ship, whose glass was the shiniest, whose ship was and so maybe some of those old naval traditions that we definitely have to bring back in order to instill this whole level of pride that is necessary to propel the organization forward. Because really and truly, in all honesty, and there's I talked to a lot of BDF Marines, and a lot of them seem very despondent. They hear the stories about the former glory of the Defense Force, and they some of them feel discouraged for whatever reason. But I think we all hope all is not lost, and I'm sure that we can. We have a good man at the helm in the person of Dr. King, and I'm sure that he's going to look at some of these issues, and he's going to continue to bring the Defense Force out of the doldrums and make it the best of Navy in this part of the world once again.
Well, I tell you that I'm very impressed with how Dr. Raymond King moves when it comes to implementing things, when it comes to having a good look at things and seeing how it could be improved. And I have had direct contact with him on some situations, and I've watched him make it better. I think we have the best opportunity right now in this force to cause it to become more proficient. And you got somebody at the top who's prepared to listen and with an eager ear to improve.
I hope our good friend our good friend Tellus is listening. I'm calling Tellus. Tellus, you're sitting in lofty places. Now is the time for you to let's see if we can get this show, get this train, get this ship sailing again, get this ship righted. Let's give the Defense Force what they need to succeed, and let's lobby for changes in the structure. How we organize ourselves, because really and truly we were talking about decentralization of the force for many years, and it appears as though it's happening slowly. And of course, it takes a lot of money to set up a base and to equip it and to run it. But we need to. I think it's time that we could see this thing come to the type of fruition where it's effective it's effective in helping us to carry out that mandate, which is to guard the territorial integrity of the Bahamas, and so tell us, give us a little push at that level.
Well, I work directly with Tellus. When I was a midshipman coming in from Dartmouth, Tellus was the first person that I worked with. He was the XO on board. Jackson Ritchie was the captain. And I can tell you, Tellus is he really has that job at heart. Obviously, he would have inherited, just like Dr. King would have inherited, just like Roddy Bowe, Butch Cavella, Davy Roll, even Leon Smith. They would have inherited certain situations that kind of got voiced along the way, because the systems that I think is required are not really instilled in the force. We need systems for maintaining these ships. We need systems for ensuring that people on board these ships are properly certified and ready. When I left the Defense Force and I went to work with this company called Intamaco Shipping with those 2 container ships, and I saw the chief engineer on board both those ships actually overhauling generators, overhauling engines, actually changing packs on these big engines and spearheading the whole operation. And I was like, why we don't do this in the Defense Force? Because those people are properly trained, they come up in a proper systematic format, and they're properly certified, and they can do these things. And when you see them place an order for a part, these people don't expect nobody to come on board their ship and give them no support. They have the team on board and they replacing those things by themselves because they are certified to that extent and capable to that extent. And Defense Force engineers are nowhere near it because we never paid proper attention to engineering in that force.
I agree with you 1,000,000%. And I remember when we used to haul and carry repairs to Defense Force vessels right there on base. There were people like Sebastian and those guys.
Yeah, but you're talking about underwater. You're talking about dry dock work. I'm talking about in the engine room, on the machinery. These people still sailing and getting these things done while the ship's sailing all the time. The ship don't stop for that, you know.
Yeah, and we were better back then when we had the people like Dane Wilson and them Big Will and them. They did a lot. They carried out lots and lots of repairs.
Yeah, because that's all we had. Captain Brain. If we had properly qualified officers in those engine rooms, there would have been a supporting staff. And I take nothing from them because I don't blame them for what position they were put in. But we need a system that is gonna right what is wrong. When we send this force was sending people to Dartmouth from day one to be. They've never sent somebody off at a young age, like 18 and 19, to become an engineering officer in that force. Everybody going to be deck officers.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you have the ships, you have the officers, but the ships keep breaking down. The ships don't make it past 10 years.
If you look at the Defense Force, in my opinion, when you look at the amount of people who are engineers or who are when compared to deck officers and the like, there's a big disparity, and that's only really and truly a microcosm of what the greater Bahamian society is like. We have an engineer, a technical shortage throughout this country in every discipline.
Yeah, but
You know why? Because we don't steer our bright minds in that direction anymore. People, that engineering, mechanical engineering, and the physics and the math and whatnot. Everybody's trying to shy away from that. They want to take the easy road.
No, but you went to high schools and you found people who you figure were capable and qualified to be a deck officer. You send them to Dartmouth, but you could have done the same thing and soliciting people who had the capacity and the qualification to. You have people who going off to be engineers all the time. They never had the option to be a Defense Force vessel engineering officer because they were sent off to training the minute they came out of high school. That option was never there.
Yeah.
And if we was to put that option in place and give some priority to that, then we'd be like in the real world. Do you know that every ship out there, every single international ship, all 50,000 plus of them, the captain is overall in charge, and the second person is always the chief engineer, and his salary in some cases is higher than the captain's salary?
Indeed.
Yeah, but in the Defense Force we got the CO, the XO, the NO, and then the chief engineer, because the chief engineer is a down rating.
Yeah.
Why? Why? Because we don't understand. Well, back then I thought that's the way it's supposed to be until I got to the real world and I realized we had it backwards.
Again, that's an opportunity for us. We know that we could have. There were things that we ought to have done that we did not, and we still find ourselves in this boat today. So we have to start somewhere, and like you say, we could go and recruit from the schools and try to direct and steer these kids.
Yeah, because
the disciplines that we really need, and with engineering being a major one of them.
Yeah, because Herbie, when you got a young man coming out of high school with physics, maths, and he's not going to join the Defense Force to be a rating. He's not going to join the Defense Force to say, well, I want to be engineer in the Defense Force. I could be. No, you need to give him something to want to join the Defense Force. Let him know we're going to send you straight to college. Let you do your 4-year degree in marine engineering. And when you graduate, you are going to be a sub-lieutenant. He knows that from Jump Street, and he's prepared to do that.
I would like to see, you know what I like to see? I would like to see the career paths laid out on paper for an officer who's on the deck side, and the career path laid out on paper for an officer on the engineering side, and we utilize those particular career paths in as far as practicable without diversions, and I think all this is a part of the planning for the future and determining how many engineering officers we need, how many deck officers we need.
The same amount of engineering officers.
I agree wholeheartedly with the point that you would have made earlier with respect to putting civilians to do those what I call back of the house jobs that they're capable of performing.
Yeah, man. We need to keep our trained defense force personnel to stick to defense force work. Things which civilians really not trained to do.
Yeah, and then we need to also re-indoctrinate our defense force officers and Marines that the defense force is a seagoing force, and as such, when you join the defense force, you join the sail.
Yeah, but if you have it set up that way.
That's what we do. We are the guardians of the sea, of the Bahamian territory, making sure that all the maritime law enforcement that is necessary in those areas, that those are carried, making sure that all the search and rescue capability that we supposed to have in place, that those things are carried out and the like. So yeah.
Call on the line and see you. Yeah. Maybe you want to hold the line, or you want me to go to?
I'll hang up and I'll wait for you. But thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute. And I wish that more BDF officers would call in and let's continue the conversation.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for calling in and giving us your input, because it was very valuable. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
All right. Caller, you on Maritime Matters. Good night to you.
Hello.
Yes, good night to you, sir. How are you?
Very good. I listened to your conversation at the opportunity I get, and it's very interesting, that especially to hear the amount of knowledge you have. But my question to you is a simple one. If I can hear you, the powers to be can hear you. What is the response from them concerning all of this litany of things that you're putting forth? Because, to be truthful, you're not operating in a vacuum. You're being heard. So I want to know, what is the response, if any at all? Or have you made a official presentation to them to make changes that is necessary to make the upgrades necessary for the defense force? Because, you come on week after week, yes, and that's good to sensitize the public. What you're doing is needed. But at some point, the rubber needs to meet the road. So what is the response from the authorities based on what this show is all about?
Yeah. Well, sir, thank you very much for that question. I'm just going to hang up and respond to you. Mm-hmm. Or if you want to hold the line, you can. But
I'm going to listen to you. I have to hang it as well, but just something that came to my mind, because we can't just keep beating the drums.
Yeah. No. See, this.
We need response. We need to start making inroads.
I agree with you. Now, this show.
Yeah.
This shows.
I hear you, brother. I can hear the cry, but I know they hear you, and I want to know what is happening based on, their response to your cry. And I'll hang up and I'll listen to it.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for that question, and that is a very timely question. The caller is asking basically, look, you got all these things that you're able to point out, and obviously they seem to be things that can be utilized for the better. What are authorities saying about trying to consider and apply some of what you're saying, or all of what you're saying, or what I will say to the caller, and I will say to the listening audience, because obviously he's one of the listening audience. I thank him so much for continuing to listen to Maritime Matters. I have been in dialogue with a few people, and I like to say in low places, but no, I've been in dialogue with some of the people at the top. I've been in dialogue with Commodore King himself on just some of this, because I am only now presenting this the way I am. But I can tell you that this is only the beginning, because this show will go on. And as this show goes on, we will be hitting on these areas. Because I just happen to be fortunate to have been in certain places at certain times to attain certain knowledge as to how things work in the real world. And I am fortunate to have been a defense force, a properly, fully trained defense force officer for many years in the defense force. I've sailed for many years. I've run every ship defense force had, and I can tell you that when I got into the real world running ships, it caused me to realize that either the defense force didn't have a clue, or they were very naive as far as putting things together, particularly with the engineering side of things. And that's why we have shows like this, or well, this particular show I can speak to. That's why I bring on things that I know can create improvement in vast areas, improvement not only for the force, but improvement for Bahamian economy to do better. Because if you have a ship, like we did over the years, that can last for 30 years because the maintenance was on point, as opposed to a ship that after 8-9 years, it basically finished because the ship was allowed to run to north where maintenance is concerned, and you got to basically sideline it. I know of ships that we overhauled and bought new engines for, and the ship started to run again. The HMBS Inagua did like 3 times. They changed the whole machine. They didn't have to change them, If they was maintaining those engines the way they had done in the real world, that ship, those Vosper Thornycroft ships, would have lasted well over 30 years. I'm talking about running properly. They had good Caterpillar engines. We have good GM engines in the 108s, the Yellow Elder, Samana, and Port Nelson. And we just didn't have the level. Mind you, we had good engineers. And I can name some of those guys who did their best, and they really was good. But they were not at the level of the guy who did in the real world, who went through proper chief engineering training and exposure. The guy that runs the ship in the Royal Navy, the guy that runs the ships in the U.S. Coast Guard. These guys ain't no little jokey engineering ratings that was trust in a position where they have to be chief engineers. These guys are real chief engineers that really know what they're doing, and they're making much mistakes. And they planning. They don't need to depend on a base staff to plan their maintenance. No, that's happening on board the ship with them in charge. They have the same amount of deck officers they have on the ship, the same amount of engineering officers. Today, like I said, Defense Force, no Defense Force vessel has a commissioned officer in the engine room. They have 3 commissioned deck officers, but a senior rate as the chief engineer, and all the deck officers above him. That's the amount, the level of respect they have for properly maintaining their fleet. And I don't blame any Commodore, because all of our Commodores, well, except one, were deck officers. You only had one Commodore that was kind of engineering. I mean, I wouldn't say he was an engineer, but he was a technician, eh? So what we need is this force, the same amount of deck officers for every vessel. We should have that same. In the real world, you have the captain or the master. Then you have the chief mate or the mate. Then you have what you call officers in charge of navigation watching. You may have 2 or 3 of them. And that's the deck side. And on the engine side, you have the chief engineer, who's basically the captain really above him. They're like even. Then you have the second engineer, who's basically in line with the chief with the chief mate. And then you have the same thing. Officers forming part of an engineering watch, or officers in charge of an engineering watch. In other words, somebody gotta be qualified to be in charge of a watch at all times. And in the Defense Force, we use ratings for all of that. No qualified officers. And we expect to have good maintenance for our vessels? No, we're wrong. We've been wrong for decades. And we need to fix it. We need to fix it. Now, we could talk about some other things, and time look like it's getting a little low. Boy, look here, I need to go to my commercial. Mr. Producer, sir, could we go into one commercial before I come back and start talking a little more about the engineering side of things and a little more about how we need to certify our people in the Defense Force so that we could get far better production? Thank you, sir.
GAB is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Sanders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
In the morning sun, I'll be sitting watching the ships rolling, and I want to roll away.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Welcome again to Maritime Matters. My goodness, what I could say in 10 minutes. I want to finish the Force Engineering Officer. The Force Engineering Officer, again, he has a larger team than the BXO and the SEO. He would have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lieutenant commanders working on there. Why? Why? Because engineering in the Defense Force is that important. Engineering takes half of what the force really do. Well, of course, you need a base support. That's like a technical management company. They ordering the parts, and they supporting the fellas on the ship who, if they're properly certified, but they know exactly what they need and how to change things on their ship and all the rest of that, right? Again, just like I have you, the Northern Command and Southern Command for deck, you have your Northern engineer and Southern engineer to take care of those two zones. So the Force Engineering Officer would have 2 lieutenant commanders working under him. That are one take care of North, one take care of South, and then the base support will obviously be the Central, eh? And then you have hull maintenance, because ships are required to come out of the water in the real world once every 5 years. I remember when I was on the Defense Force, if you don't hit the bottom, you never come out of the water. We had no program to say at least once every 5 years, take the ship out of the water, clean up the bottom, check your cutlass bearing, check everything on underneath your vessels, and no matter what it costs, you do that and then put the ship back in the water. And that's how I remember when I was on the Marlin. Oh Lord, I can't talk that. I was on the Marlin And the Marlin was springing leaks because the engine mount was gone. And it took months and months for that engineering mount to reach. I don't even know if it ever reached, because I think I probably was the last captain on the Marlin before they just put out of service. And that was a Vosper built. Man, let me tell you something. We have neglected maintenance in that force so bad that we just lost ships after 10 years. Lost them. Just let them sitting in the barnyard and don't check for them, because we failed to do the proper engineering on these ships, right? And I call it what it is. I ain't never scared of nobody. I call it what it is. We had some people who thought they knew it. They didn't have a clue. So we got the hull maintenance required. We need a lieutenant commander to deal with all the hulls of the entire fleet on the Defense Force. That comes under the Force Engineering Officer, who's a commander, a scramble egg, 3-ring commander, eh? Machinery maintenance. That's the person who makes sure these engineers on these ships have proper maintenance plan, maintenance schedule in place, and he would be the one that go and do the audits on these ships, because he would have been exposed to what auditing ships is all about, and he would have been subject to auditing ships because he would have served on commercial ships in order to get his status as a chief engineer or second engineer or whatever the case may be for international ships. Then you got the technical department. And of course, the technical department dealing with the radios and the non-mechanical stuff, eh? That's your technical stuff on board the ship. Your surveillance, your fire monitoring, and then you get your electrical department. You need an electrician who knows about marine electrician, because when you're out to sea, you basically be your own BEC, eh? You own everything on that ship, because you have to make those generators work. Electrical wise, you got to keep all your lights going. Electrical wise, you got to keep all your wires the way they're supposed to be, and your switchboards, and it's a lot of work for the electrician. My heart goes off to my good friend who died many years ago, God bless his soul, Ray Davil. Ray was an electrician of the highest order. I seen him do some things in the commercial field that the normal electrician couldn't do. And I wouldn't talk much about it. But we had some good people in the Defense Force. We just didn't have structure and system to facilitate them into being what they could have been. And that's where we need to go. And then we have a whole fleet of vehicles. We need at least one lieutenant commander to take care of the car. Because the same thing has happened with the cars, When they don't service them on time, what happened? They need a new engine. They need a new transmission. Come on, man. We could do better than that. But that's basically the setup as I see it for the Defense Force. You got the Commodore. He has 2 captains under him, one for the base, one for headquarters. Each of those captains, the headquarters captain, would have a base liaison officer, the lieutenant commander, the commander that deals with all the activities and all the heads of departments on the base. And then they would have, of course, the public liaison officer for entities outside of the Defense Force, like the ministries and foreign affairs and NGOs and that type of thing. And then you have CCH, the captain of Coral Harbor, who would have 3 major commanders under him, because he's a foreign captain. Those would be the BXO, the SEO, and the FEO, which is the Force Engineering Officer. And those would have a litany of lieutenant commanders under them in those various departments. And I say, maybe this could be skewed and polished a little bit, and some things could be changed around. I have no issues with that. But at the end of the day, let's have a structure for the Defense Force for what it is supposed to be. And when you get that structure, like I say, you want to get back to having qualified people in your force. And when I say qualified people, you could have anybody being promoted to do anything. But promotion should come based on you being able to qualify yourself in the commercial field. The force should be giving you time to go serve on ships. And I really wish I had more time because we could talk about how the BMA, the Bahamas Maritime Authority Technical Department in London, could be incorporated into all of this, right? As far as officers having a presence in that unit at all times. And this is something that was set out to be done in the past. And, well, of course, I know the reason why it didn't happen because we had we had some people that really held this force back. And I'm about calling names, but we had some key personnel that if they were not so stuck on stupid, this force would have leaped far more proficient than it is today. A lot of courses they just putting aside, I need to send nobody on that because these people, I remember one time, somebody just told me just recently, they had a course that was available to them. And the command or the Commodore at the time asked them, well, why you need to do that? So, well, boss, what you mean, why I need to do this? This is something that the force could use and I could teach other people. No, why. And then when you look, you will leave the force. And that was their mentality. And I heard Lyndon Pinlin said to a particular Commodore, I ain't got no Commodore name, look, if they leave the Defense Force because they do this training, wherever they go, they will be Bahamians in the Bahamas with that qualification. So the Bahamas can't lose. The thing is, they don't even want to say, have you professionally or professionally qualified because they think you may leave the force. So what? Then bring in more people and let all them be professionally qualified so the entire country could feel it, eh? And that's one of the reasons why we don't have engineers going to sea today. Because the opportunity is that we could have to have a lot of a real qualified engineers in the maritime world. They're being thrown away. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got a lot more to say. But you know what? Like most of our shows, got to conclude now. I thank that caller for asking, what are authorities doing about these things you say? And I believe him. They listen to it, you know. And I can tell you that from time to time I make calls. And I'm not going to sit down on these things because I have all this documented. I have shows. We can repeat shows. But I'm not going to sit by and allow things to just, because I know better. And I think the country can benefit, so I'm going to push it. So I thank that caller for making that call. And ladies and gentlemen, again, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force is a very good organization. We need to take it to the next level. And that's exactly where we're headed. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to get there. Again, Maritime Matters was brought to you by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. We were brought to you by One-on-One Pharmacy. And of course, the sister company in Freeport, which is Island Care Pharmacy. And we were also brought to you by GBI Pilots and Bimini Pilots. One and the same mergers. They want to take care of all the pilotage needs in the entire country where pilots are not bringing in large ships. And I thank them for joining our sponsorship team. I say again, good night to you, Annie Mae. I know you're listening straight through. Or if you drop sleep, I'll send it to you so you listen to it tomorrow. You know how we roll. And ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for continuing to listen to Maritime Matters. I wish to thank my very able callers who keep this show alive, keep me on point. And with that, I thank my good producer, the one and only Mr. Craig Gibson. And he always got my back. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, we say Maritime Matters out.